into Menachem Ba. So we surely deserve to have the Geula take from Yad Mamash. So we're going to talk about the Geula. We're going to talk about Kimai Tzaischa me'eretz Mitzrayim arenu niflais. The shir, as usual, is l'schus u'le'ilei nishmas Miriam Bas Ephraim Ze'ev. She should have a kitz v'ranu sheikh ne'ofa b'i b'teicham take miyad mamash. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam sha'akril nihiyah v'dvarei. I'd like to start to mention that today is Hey Menachem Av, which is the yahrzeit of the Arizal. I hope not to forget later, maybe towards the end, to give a few inyanim about the Arizal, since when it comes to the someone's a tzaddik's yahrzeit, it's surely an appropriate time to talk about the tzaddik. So I'll bring a few vertlach, things that the Rebbe brings concerning the Arizal. Bli neder. There's a pasuk in Amos. In Micha. There's a pasuk in Micha. The pasuk says, Kimai Tzaischa me'eretz Mitzrayim arenu niflais. Do you want to know what kind of geula, how is the geula going to take place? La'asid, to look back, what happened in Yetzias Mitzrayim, and Kimei Tzaischa me'eretz Mitzrayim, just like then Hashem showed us miracles, arenu niflais, Hashem will show us miracles again. That's the simple translation of the pasuk. That la'asid lavei, when Mashiach comes, Hashem is going to show us niflois, just like He did by Yetzias Mitzrayim. The Rebbe is going to quote a shtickle maimer from the Frierdiker Rebbe, which was said Tafshin Ches. It's printed in Sefer Maimon Tafshin Ches, and is going to expound on it and explain to us what is the dimyon, what is the mashal, and what is the nimshal. The mashal is Yetzias Mitzrayim, and the nimshal is the Golo Asida. We're going to be going back and forth. Which one is greater, the mashal or the nimshal? We have a lot to talk about here. The Rebbe is also going to introduce many levels of miracles. When you're talking about that enu niflois, what are niflois? Niflois, as we're going to see in the Maimer, can be things that we don't even realize. Ein balanes makeh b'nisai. Great niflois happening. Then there are niflois that we see, gewaldige niflois. We have no way to explain it, to internalize it. Doesn't make sense to us, but we witness it. So we're going to be talking about all different kinds of levels of nisim. Nisim in teva, lamayla min teva, and so on and so forth. The Hirat saying that we should have the nisim come bepeil mamash, like we're going to end up learning the Maimer. You're going to see that there's such a thing that in teva mamash, the teva will not hide over the elokus the way it's right now. Right now we don't see elokus. What we see now is teva. But in teva there is elokus. Just that teva was given permission to conceal it. Mashiach comes, teva will become, so to speak, transparent, and we'll see the Yad Hashem in everything. I'd like to give tzedakah because the Rebbe says Chlal, Gedel tzedakah shmei Rebbe says Geula, and Siyam b'mishpat tipada v'shaveh b'tzedakah, especially now. So everyone, if they can give tzedakah. Maybe kveit kedusha maybe v'chamei admor. V'mamari divra maschul zeh. Frierdiker Rebbe brings in his Maimer, where he quotes this pasuk from Micha, Kimei Tzaischa me'eretz Mitzrayim arenu niflois, 6 words in this pasuk. And the Frierdiker Rebbe brings it in his Maimer, Shenemar Lifnei Shloshim Shana, which was said 30 years earlier than Tavshin Lamed Ches. That's Tavshin Ches. Brings over there diuk hazoyhar. It's a shiloh that a diuk that the Zohar brings. What's that? Shenemar kimei loshin rabim. Doesn't say yom ki yom tzeischa me'eretz Mitzrayim, like the day Tes Vav Nisan that you went out of Mitzrayim arenu neflois. Just like then there were miracles on Tes Vav Nisan. The same thing when Mashiach comes, there will be miracles. It doesn't say ki yom tzeischa. It says ki yamei, like the days of your going out of Mitzrayim, implying that there were days that we went out of Mitzrayim. The Zohar is medayik this and asks Shaila, how do you see as Mitzrayim hoyisa biyoim echad? Tzias Mitzrayim was only a chamisha asa b'nisan. Not many days, like the Lashon of Zohar, Echad Zimna Nefaku. That in one time, in one day, they went out. In fact, it says that Hashem did not withhold the Yidden Mitzrayim even the time it takes to blink an eye. So they went out on Chamisha Asar. So why does it say in the pasuk ki yemei tzeischa, the days that they went out? The kash is even stronger. The Rebbe is bringing a pasuk v'chein v'schir as golas Mitzrayim ksiv, regarding the remembering golas Mitzrayim. It says leman tizker es yom tzeischa me'eretz Mitzrayim, yom lashon yachid. It doesn't matter as Yemei Tzeischa, it says Yom Tzeischa. V'dei Chamisha B'Nisan. V'lo menemer kan kimei loshen rabim. So the pasuk that the Rebbe is bringing from Leman Tizka is just to strengthen the kasha. Why does it say kimei loshen rabim when elsewhere it mamish refers to the day going on in Mitzrayim as one day, Yom Tzeischa me'eretz Mitzrayim. So why is it saying here, Kimei Lashon Rabim? The Frierdiker Rebbe explains that it is indeed Yemei Tzeischa. There are actually many, many days that we're going out in Mitzrayim. As a matter of fact, from the day Chamisha Asar B'Nisan until Mashiach comes is one long story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. Shekol hayamim mi'azman the Yetzias Mitzrayim ad ha'geula ha'asida, they're all Heim Yemei Tzeischa me'eretz Mitzrayim. They're all days of going out of Mitzrayim. V'lachein nemar kimei lashon rabim. That's why it says Ki Yemei Tzeischa, because there are actually many days. What's the meaning of this? What does it mean we're all going on? Do we see pirate behind us? What does it mean? Of course, Chassidus always explains, Meitzarim U'Gevulim. But the Rebbe is going to explain it in a new light. That there is something of Yetzias Mitzrayim that did not stop. And it's continuing and continuing on all these years, from the year 2448, when Yetzias Mitzrayim happened, until today, 3,333 years, we're still going out of Mitzrayim. What does that mean? Mamshech ba'maimer. Frierdiker Rebbe continues in that Maimer to explain it. Lahavin zeh, yesh lahaktim, in order to understand it, we first have to preface a Mishnah. The Isav Mishnah, there's a Mishnah that says something very similar to the pasuk Kimai Tzaischa me'eretz Mitzrayim. Pasuk says in the Mishnah on the pasuk Laman Tizkar Isim Tzaischa me'eretz Mitzrayim. The pasuk that we brought earlier in the first paragraph. But here the Mishnah is bringing it for a limud. That what? We in the Haggadah we say that Elazar ben Azariah, what did he say? That we mention Yetzias Mitzrayim by day and also by night. How do you know also by night? Because it says L'man Tizker Sim Tzeischa, to mention it, Tizker, remember it, not just Yimei Chayecha, Koil Yimei Chayecha. Why the extra word Koil? Lahavi Aleilis, that also by night. Then Chachamim Aimrim, Chachamim say that in the pasuk when it says Yimei Chayecha, that's Olam Hazeh. Koil Yimei Chayecha. Why did it say the word Koil? Lahavi L'meisa Mashiach. That also when Mashiach comes, we will remember, there will be Zechiras Yetzias Mitzrayim. Also when Mashiach comes. That's how the Mishnah explains it. Now this Maimer is not talking about Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah and the Drasha ben Zayma. It's going over to V'chachamim Maimer, talking the second opinion. What's the extra word? Koil Yemei Chayecha. The koil, all the days of your life, koil is to include the times of Mashiach. Lahavi L'meisa Mashiach, that then also we're going to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim. Yemei Chayecha Olam Hazeh. Koil Yemei Chayecha Lahavi L'meisa Mashiach. Here comes a big question that's asked in many places in Chassidus. For what purpose are we going to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim when Mashiach comes? When Mashiach comes, there's going to be such a great Geula. So many niflois. Like Chassidus explains, Tzemach Tzedek explains, that's what the pasuk means. Ki mei Tzaischa me'eretz Mitzrayim, like the days he went out of Mitzrayim, there were miracles. Ad enu, I'm going to show you more. Ad enu niflois. These are going to be niflois, wonders, even legabe, compared to the miracles of Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's going to be so much greater. So it's taking a candle and lighting it in the middle of the sunlight, in the middle of the day. What's going to be accomplished mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim, which is a great thing, Yetzias Mitzrayim, but nothing to compare. Nothing to compare to the Geula. The Geula is going to be so much greater. That's the shaila here. Harei Geula asidatiyah, nailas harbe yosef, mea Geula, the Yetzias Mitzrayim, the forthcoming Geula, the future Geula, is going to be so much higher than the Geula that was in the year 2448. In which way it's going to be greater? Hein benegea legola atzma. The Geula itself is going to be much greater. Shagola asidati gola shlema shein achrei galus. This is the greatest thing about the future Geula that makes it so much greater. It's going to be an eternal Geula. That was only temporary. It wasn't a Geula nitzchis. It only lasted until the next Galus came about. So the Geula Asida is going to be so much greater. So that's one thing about the Geula Asida, how great it is compared to Yetzias Mitzrayim. The Hain, it's twofold. There's another mila that the Geula Asida is going to have. When the Geula Giluyim da Geula, the Giluyim itself Not only the fact that technically it's going to be the last and final Geula, also the very Geula itself, what's going to be the Gilui Elokus, the Giluyim, the revelations, Shagiluyim, the Sheyu, the Geula, Hoasida, Yunailim Harbi Yosem Magiluyim, Shoya Bagola, the Tzias Mitzrayim. The Giluyim that's going to be when Mashiach comes, it's so much greater, infinitely greater than the Giluyim that there were by Yetzias Mitzrayim. So we see there's a mashal and there's an imshal. The mashal is Kimai Tzaischa Eretz Mitzrayim. The nimshal is Arenu Neflois by the Geula. But it doesn't make sense. How are you comparing the two? The nimshal is so much greater than the mashal. It's going to be so much gili oir then. There's going to be such a gili oir, such giluyim by the Golo Hasida. Why should we ever mention the Mitzias Mitzrayim? Of what purpose? In another Maimah, B'chol Dar V'Dar, Tavshalam Medalit, the Rebbe adds one word over there. I didn't see it here. The Rebbe writes, V'harei Zchira, when there's a Zchira al Pi Torah, it has to accomplish something. What's the purpose of mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim when we're going to have such a gilui? It's like a person got $1, then he got $1 million. Is he going to talk about the dollar he once got? So this is a question that the Friedrich Rebbe asked in the Maimah. So first he brought two sources. Brought the pasuk Kimei Tzaischa Eretz Mitzrayim Arenu Neflois, and he asked why is Kimei Loshen Rabim when the pasuk says L'man Tizka is Yoim Tzaischa, it's only one day. And the second point that he brought from the Mishnah says when Mashiach comes, we're going to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim. It seems like from both things, from the pasuk in Micha, Kimei Tzaischa, and the Mishnah, it seems like Yetzias Mitzrayim is a very fundamental factor connected with the Geula HaSida. Even though the Geula HaSida is going to be so much greater. And that's why the pasuk says, has to mention Kimei Tzaischa Eretz Mitzrayim Arenu Neflois. That's going to be, there's something going to be from like Yetzias Mitzrayim there. Number two, what the Mishnah says, that even after the Geula comes, you're going to mention Yetzias Mitzrayim. So that means in two periods. Number one, the Geula period itself, when it takes place, we're going to remember, this is like Mitzrayim, Yetzias Mitzrayim. Number two, that once the Geula comes, we're not going to stop. We're going to keep on mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim. How do we explain this? The Friedrich Rebbe explains is that in the Geula, the Yetzias Mitzrayim, there is something unique and so important, and that's why we're not letting go. We keep on talking about Yetzias Mitzrayim. What happened then? Nischadish inyan ikri. Was a gewaldige chidush took place by Yetzias Mitzrayim. What took place? Psichas hatzinoi dechol hageulos. It opened up the tzinoi, the gates, to all geulas. Also the Geula, gam the Geula HaSida. In other words, before Yetzias Mitzrayim, there was no such thing in the world as Geula. It was Shibud. You didn't work there 210 years enslaved. And then came Geula. It was not just the first Geula. It opened up the Pesach, the door, the gateway for any Geula in the future to come. including the Gola Asida. So in a way, Yetzias Mitzrayim plays such an important role, so to speak, that if there was no Yetzias Mitzrayim, Mashiach can't come. You can't have the future Geula. Who opened up? Who made the Psicha of Geula? That was Yetzias Mitzrayim. B'lachem. And for this, we're always going to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's like the master who opened up the jail room of a slave, that every day that the slave is able to live freely, he remembers his master. He remembers the day that he was freed. That's why Kol Hayomim, Me'azman Yetzias Mitzrayim, Ad Gula Asida, therefore all the days from the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim until the Gula Asida, they're Haim Yemei Tzaischa Meretz Mitzrayim Yemei Loshen Rabim. They're all like the fruits and the effect of the first day of Yetzias Mitzrayim. So we're constantly, in all generations, whenever there's a Geula, all the times, and every single day, stems from that Chidush, that one time that the Eibishter opened up the Tzinor, the gateway, the Shar to Geula. So here we have two things that are apparently intertwined, but we're going to see how the Rebbe is going to separate them. What do we have? One reason that's causing two effects. One reason why we call this Yemei Tzaischa. Because every day, the fact that we are now free from Mitzrayim, free from Paro, because it says, Ilu lo yhoitzi HaKadosh Baruch Hu es Yisrael miMitzrayim, if Hashem didn't Yitzis, we would still be in Mitzrayim. So every day of our freedom is what? Is a result of Yetzias Mitzrayim. So this is all part of Yetzias Mitzrayim. So that answers the question why we say Yemei Loshen Rabim, including our every day until the Geula. It answers another question, why when Mashiach comes, we're going to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim. Because who causes the Geula when Mashiach comes? Who opened up the Tzinor to be able to have the Geula Amitis Vashlema? Again, Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's not just recognition to Yetzias Mitzrayim, that right now that we have Yetzias Mitzrayim, the fact that we're not in Mitzrayim, we have the Geulos that we have, and the Geula Asida. Both of them come from the same reason, because Yetzias Mitzrayim was the nucleus, the beginning, the Psichas Hashar. So l'chayda, they're both effects are connected to each other. That it's Yemei all these days, and number two, that we're going to mention it when Mashiach comes too. Says the Rebbe, l'chayda yesh leimar, sha'kesh ed dishnei ho'inyonim sheba maimer. The connection between the two objects, the two inyanim in the maimer. Number one, ha'inyin Yemei Loshen Rabim. We answered why it's Yemei Loshen Rabim, because it all started then, and it's continuing like a pa'ula nimsheches. And the second thing, bezeshi yiskidu tzias mitzrayim gam b'yimei HaMashiach. So the cash of these two things, who ki inyan Yemei Loshen Rabim, who lefi shebegola ha'geula d'yetzias Mitzrayim niftach hatzinor d'chol ha'geulos gam ha'geula gam d'geula hasida. That same door that opened up the geula that for in Yetzias Mitzrayim is for all the geulos throughout the generations, and that's why it's Yemei Loshen Rabim, v'lachein, and that's why also Yaskiru Yetzias Mitzrayim gam b'yimei HaMashiach. That's why we're going to mention this also b'yimei HaMashiach. all for the same reason, because it all started by Yetzias Mitzrayim. But the Rebbe is not going to show you how they are different. The two things, Kimai Tzaischa and mentioning Geula, we said they have one reason, because it all started from Yetzias Mitzrayim. Now the Rebbe is going to show us that we need an additional explanation here. This beer needs an additional explanation. Why? What's the kasher of the two things? Yemei Loshen Rabim and mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim when Mashiach comes. They both are based on the same reason, because it started by Yetzias Mitzrayim. But what does it say in the Maim of the Frierdiker Rebbe? Frierdiker Rebbe takes it in two stages. First thing is, he talks about Yemei Tzaischa Me'eretz Mitzrayim. Just first the pasuk deals with that, and he says, why is it Yemei Loshen Rabin? Because throughout the generations, we're constantly going out of Mitzrayim. It wasn't only a one-time shot. Then the Frierdiker Rebbe says, to understand it, let's understand the Mishnah, which tells us that when Mashiach comes, we're going to mention Yetzias Mitzrayim. And then we'll understand the Kimai Loshen Rabim. That's what Frierdiker Rebbe is saying. I'm putting something before you. I'm saying Kimai Loshen Rabim, because now all these days has an inyan of Yetzias Mitzrayim. To understand it, let me give you a Mishnah that will make it more understood. What is this telling us? If you have A and B, and A is exactly as B, you could study A, you don't need B. If they say to you to understand A, let's try to analyze B, means B has something to add on top of A, something that A doesn't have. So that means that there's something more in what the Mishnah is talking about by the Gula Asida that we're going to mention Yetzias Mitzrayim. Let's look inside, see how the Rebbe is saying this. The fact that the Frierdiker Rebbe says in the Maimer, that in order to understand the first concept, that Yemei is Loshen Rabim, Yesh lahaktim, we have to go over to B. We have to first preface and understand something else. Masha Yiskiru Yetzias Mitzrayim Losid Lavai. Mashma. This seems to show us Shalidei Ha'inyan the Yizchiras Yetzias Mitzrayim Mitoisef Biod Ba'inyan the Yemei Loshen Rabim. Seems like it's going to add and shed new light on understanding Yemei Tzaischa. The Kimai Tzaischa, in other words, is missing something. And by explaining the Mishnah and understanding why La'asid Lavai, we're going to mention Yetzias Mitzrayim. Once you understand that, you say, aha, now I can go back to Kimai Tzaischa, understand that better. In other words, what the Rebbe is saying, just bekitzer, that although both things, the fact that you say Kimei Tzaischa Loshen Rabim, and that we're going to mention Yetzias Mitzrayim Losid Lavai, they both stem from the same reason, because Psichas Hatzinoir, it all started by Yetzias Mitzrayim, and that's why it's Kimei Loshen Rabim, and that's why La'asid Lavai, we're going to continue to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim, because it all stems from Yetzias Mitzrayim. But from the Maimer, it seems like that if we understand a little better the Mishnah and the reason why La'asid Lavai, we're going to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim, then we're also going to understand better the Kimei Tzaischa. What is it? What is, in other words, what is B adding to A? Even though apparently they look basically the same idea, both telling you that because Yitzias Mitzrayim is the father of all Geulos, so remember it's Yimei, it's going out constantly. Yimei Tzaischa all our life, a whole since Yitzias Mitzrayim, we're constantly going on inside, and for the same reason, we're going to mention when Mashiach comes. But from the Friedrich Rebbe's Maimer, it seems like that point B is going to add a hesber. It's going to add something more that we're going to understand, Mitzvah Hashem. So let's continue the Maimer Ois Base and understand what is this extra biur that we're going to be getting from the Mishnah. The fact that we're going to remember Yitzias Mitzrayim when Mashiach comes, and this is going to add hesber, an explanation and a better, deeper understanding in the idea of Kimai Tzaischa Me'eretz Mitzrayim, Yimei Loshen Rabba. So here the Rebbe is going to say that actually the shaila that the Friedrich Rebbe is asking in the Maimer, what was the shaila? Shaila is Lasid Levi, when Mashiach comes, there's going to be such Giloyim. Why mention Yitzias Mitzrayim? Says the Rebbe, the same question you can ask on the Pasuk of Micha. The Pasuk of Micha is taking a mashal and an imshal and putting them together and showing you when you want to compare two things together, you compare the weaker thing to the stronger thing. But not the stronger thing to the weaker thing. Who's the stronger thing here? The Golo Asida. And what are you saying? You know what? It's like Kimei Tzaischa Me'eretz Mitzrayim. It's like Yitzias Mitzrayim. Kimei Tzaischa Me'eretz Mitzrayim Arenu Neflois. It's like there's similarity to Yitzias Mitzrayim. It's much greater. It's like saying $1 million is like $1. What's a pshat? So they're saying the same shaila that the Friedrich Rebbe asked about the Mishnah in Brachos. What significance does Yitzias Mitzrayim have in the time of Golo Asida? Why mention it there? Why are we mentioning it in the Pasuk? Just say, Arenu Neflois by the Golo Asida. Why are you saying, you know what kind of Neflois? You know what kind of $1 million you're going to get? Like the $1 that you got when you went out of Mitzrayim. How can we understand this? A wonderful chart here. One should remember the going out of all the days of your life. The going out of Egypt will always be important and mentioned even when Mashiach comes. That's what we're going to get to the next part shortly. Let's continue inside. This same diuk that the Friedrich Rebbe makes in the Maimer. Why do we mention Yitzias Mitzrayim Lasid Levi? Same diuk applies to this pasuk. Kimei Tzaischa. Amen. Why? Kivan Shagiluyim. You begolo asida. You nailam harbi Yosef. Me'agiluyim shoyib Mitzias Mitzrayim. Since the Giluyim that's going to be lost in Levi is so much greater than the Giluyim that were by Yitzias Mitzrayim. Mahu Aimrai Kimei Tzaischa Me'eretz Mitzrayim Arenu Neflois. It's like saying this great Talmud Chacham knows Aleph Beis like the first grader. Kimei Tzaischa Arenu Neflois and Lost Levi. I'm going to show you such wonders. Kimei Tzaischa Me'eretz Mitzrayim. Mao Aimle, Kimai Tzaischa Mitzrayim, Emet Mitzrayim, and the flesh. She'iloi de Golo Asida Hu, you know what's so special? Shegam Az, Yi Arenu Neflois. I'm going to show you wonders. What kind? Kimai Shahaya B'Tzias Mitzrayim. It seems like it's not understood. Why are you comparing it to something that's very much less? And this kasha, is the Rebbe is going to say, is even stronger in the pasuk than what the Maimer and then the Mishnah. Why? Well, shadiyuk ba'kosov kimei tzeischa goymed. You had a kasha on the Mishnah. Why is the Mishnah telling us no, Mashiach comes, you're going to mention Yetzias Mitzrayim. You had a kasha. What am I going to gain from mentioning it then? But in the Mishnah, it's not such a big kasha. You know why? Ki Yetzias Mitzrayim losid Levi. It's only going to be in a tafel way. We're going to mention it, but it's not going to be a prominent kind of remembrance. It's going to be derech tafel. So the kasha you can't say is so strong. We'll mention it. Mashenkin in the pasuk. Let's see how the Rebbe says it. Let's skip the brackets for a second. The fact you're saying ki mei tzeischa me'eretz Mitzrayim is mashma she'ikar ha'inyan the neflois haya b'yetzias Mitzrayim. You're comparing B to A. It must be like you're saying that A is the greater thing. Yetzias Mitzrayim is the greater thing. There will also be neflois. From this pasuk, it seems like, you know what? Just like by Yetzias Mitzrayim during the neflois, don't worry, you'll get neflois also lasid Levi when Mashiach comes. So from this pasuk comes out to be, it seems like, who's greater? Yetzias Mitzrayim. So the kasha is more on the pasuk than on that Mishnah. Let's go back to the brackets. The fact that the Frierdiker Rebbe is also medayik in the Mishnah, you're saying the Mishnah, it's not such a big kasha because Lasid Levi you'll just mention b'derech tafel. So why does the Frierdiker Rebbe bring up this question then? If it's not such a big kasha, just drop it. Why is the Frierdiker Rebbe medayik in the Maimer? Says the Rebbe, v'adiyuk v'amaimer hu shemitzad goydol ilu de gula hasida, because the gula hasida is so great and the gili is so great. Legabe agula di Yetzias Mitzrayim lo yihayet tzarech l'cha'era laz lahaske Yetzias Mitzrayim afilu b'derech tafel. The Frierdiker Rebbe shaila is, don't even mention b'derech tafel. Not necessary to mention it at all. To sum up, what's the question right now? Question is that this same deal that the Frierdiker Rebbe made on the Mishnah, what's the point of mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim when Mashiach comes? Yetzias Mitzrayim is nothing compared to the Golo Asida. The same kasha you can ask in the pasuk. And what is the pasuk telling you? Listen, like I gave you $1 by Yetzias Mitzrayim, I'm going to give you $1 million when Mashiach comes. So why talk about the dollar? It's not understood. In the pasuk, it's a bigger kasha. But here the Rebbe is going to talk about what we're saying, that the whole idea that we're saying that Lasid is going to be greater Geluyim. There is a way you can answer this question. How can you answer the question? That Micha, when it says in Micha, Ki Tzaischa Me'eretz Mitzrayim, the Chof Hadimya, it's comparing it to Yitzis Mitzrayim, it means to say something else. Gam Shemavua B'Kamim Mekaymis. Da Pirush Di Kimai Tzaischa Me'eretz Mitzrayim, Arenu Nefloisu. That it's comparing in the opposite direction. Shena Neflois Shiyu B'Gulo Asida, Yiyu Neflois Gam Be'erech HaNeflois Shoyu B'Yidmei Tzaischa Me'eretz Mitzrayim. That this is telling us in the opposite direction. Just like you know what was by Yetzias Mitzrayim, Kimai Tzaischa Me'eretz, I'm going to show you Neflois much greater. That's what it means. Oh, Kimai Razal. Like the Razal say on this pasuk, Allah pasuk Arenu Neflois. You know what the Razal say? They say Arenu Mashaloi Eisi La'avais. I'm going to show you what I did not show to your Avais, your ancestors who went out of Mitzrayim. Doesn't mean the Avais of Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov. It means the Yidden who went out of Mitzrayim. I'm going to show you then by the Gulo Asida Arenu Neflois what I didn't show to the Avais. Shari Nisim and Neflois Shani Asid Lasis in Imabanim Yoiser Me'apela B'Neflois Mashosisim Avais. It's going to be so much greater than the Pella and the Neflois that I did for your ancestors. V'cheinu Oimer La'oisei Neflois K'doilis Levadoi Kiloilim Chastoi. It says that there are Neflois that the Eibishter only himself he knows about it. So what is the Rebbe adding here? The Rebbe is adding the l'chayri. You can say there's no kasha. We asked why in the pasuk Kimei Tzaischa Me'eretz Mitzrayim. He's comparing it to Kimei Tzaischa Me'eretz Mitzrayim when it's so much greater than Arenu Neflois of Lasid. The Rebbe says there is another way to teach it. Kimei Tzaischa Me'eretz Mitzrayim. That's only a dimyon. But La'asid Arenu Neflois. It's going to be so much greater. Like the Medrash says, I'm going to show you more than what the Yidden saw by Yetzias Mitzrayim. So l'chayra, that can answer the question. Says the Rebbe Mikol Makayim. The question is still there. Any way you cut it, the question is going to still be there. Why? Mizeh sha'akosef oimet. Sha'niflois yu b'ge'ulo hasida. She'yu b'ge'ulo hasida. That those what niflois that are going to be in Gula Hasida Yiyu, Kimei Tzaischa Me'eretz Mitzrayim. He's still using the words Yimei Tzaischa Me'eretz Mitzrayim and saying Kimei. It's a dimyon. You are making some comparison, some similarity. Mashma. It seems from this. The Ba'anifloi Shiyu B'Gula Hasida Yiyu Beis Milas. It seems like Negula Hasida there's going to be two minus. One, that's going to be greater than the Yetzias Mitzrayim. Number two, there's going to be some aspect of it which is going to be like Yetzias Mitzrayim, as the Rebbe is going to explain later. But there is going to be some aspect of the Golo Hasida that's going to have a similarity to Yetzias Mitzrayim. Two milas. Yes, Neflois are going to be greater. Neflois gan be'erech HaNeflois shoy b'Yetzias Mitzrayim. Neflois which even greater than the Neflois he had by Yetzias Mitzrayim. V'oid ma'ila sha'neflois az yiyu k'mei Tzaischa Me'eretz Mitzrayim. That it's going to be like Yetzias Mitzrayim. What does that mean? What does that mean? There's going to be some similarity. But the Iker HaChidush v'amaylahu lo sha'niflois az yu neflois gedolos b'yoser ela zeh sha'niflois az yu k'mei Tzaischa Me'eretz Mitzrayim. This is going to be the greatest Chidush here. then not only you're going to have $1 million then, yeah, you're going to have the greatest, the Flois Gedolos. The kunz is that you're also going to have a certain mila, certain aspect that we got by Yetzias Mitzrayim. And that's what the pasuk is saying. Kimai Tzaischa me'eretz Mitzrayim in a certain aspect. Arenu those big neflois that I'm going to show you. I'll say it again. Kimai Tzaischa me'eretz Mitzrayim. There's going to be an aspect la'ased lavai that's going to be similar to Yetzias Mitzrayim, a certain aspect of it. And arenu neflois. There's going to be greater neflois then, but it's going to have a certain taste, a certain aspect of Yetzias Mitzrayim there that we're going to get by the Golo Asida. And that's why it's the pasuk can make sense. Ki meitzeischa me'eretz Mitzrayim. It's going to be not just a mashal, it's going to be actually like that. There's going to be a Gavaldik Maila that we're going to soon learn about from Yetz Hashem, about Yetzias Mitzrayim, that's going to be also by the Golo Asida. And that's going to be the Ikar. That even though there's going to be such great Giluyim, it's not a contradiction that we're also going to appreciate a certain aspect which reminds us of Yetzias Mitzrayim, as we're going to learn in Yetz Hashem in our continuation of this Maimer. I would like to mention something about the Arizal. As we know, today is Hey Menachem Av. The Rebbe said we should learn from the Arizal, learn something from him. And the best thing is, we learn from his Hanhaga. So the Rebbe, in a letter, I think it is, or in a Sicha, brings 3 things that we can learn from the Arizal. Number 1, the way he learned Torah. When he learned Torah, he learned in a way he was so immersed and learned with so much effort that if you watched him, you'll see him dripping with sweat. Haya Mezia, he would drip from sweat. Someone who goes to the gym and does heavy, vigorous exercise, he drips from sweat. The Arizal would sit and learn Torah and drip from sweat, from his Yigia. Another thing that we saw by the Arizal, that mitzvahs were so precious that he never bargained on the price of a mitzvah. He goes to the market and they say that a esrog costs 200 dinarim. He took out the money, he paid it. No questions asked. He never counted the money when it came to pay for a mitzvah. Mitzvahs were so precious then. Number 3 was his simcha, and the emphasis of simcha. As we know, it says in Tanya, Kenoida Pirish Ha'arizal ala pasuk. It's known the pasuk. There's a pasuk in the Tzaischa, in the rebuke, where it talks about chas v'shalom, the punishments. It says there, Tachas Hashaloy Avadata Shem Elokecha B'Simcha Uvetuv Levav Meiroiv Koil. What does that mean? You didn't serve Hashem with Simcha ben Meiroiv Koil. There's a diuk here. It's not just you didn't serve Hashem, period. You didn't do it b'simcha. If a person serves Hashem and it's missing the simcha, then the whole neshama is missing. I'll give a mashal. The kid comes home from school and it's his birthday, and he walks into the house and his mother walks over and gives him a birthday gift with a frown or with a regular looking face and says, here's your birthday present. How would the kid feel? As opposed to, He comes in, mother gives him a big smile and a hug. I'm so happy for you. Here's a birthday present. It's more the warmth that the kid wants than that gift, whatever it is. At least most kids. When we do a mitzvah, are we doing it to get over with it? Is it because we have a checklist? Oh, yeah, I did Esrog today. Yes, I did this, I did that. Just checking off our checklist. How much simcha is there? How much joy is there? And that's why we learn Chassidus. Chassidus develops our mind to understand the preciousness of mitzvahs. I just heard a shiur that my father gave. My father would give shiurim in Chassidus in the mornings next to his house on Empire Boulevard. Rabbi Shmueli knows about my father's shiurim. In fact, I even sent him some of the shiurim. So I heard some very geschmack of art. And by the way, anyone who wants, you can request my WhatsApp address or email address, and I can send you his shiurim. It's all an MP3. I have like 25 recordings so far. Many dozens more to come, Mitzvah. Unbelievable shiurim. So I listened just to 5-10 minutes of one of the shiurim. He's talking about Tzaischa. Tzaischa that we say in the morning. Hatzariv, Hatzipoiren, Hachelbena, Balavaina. And he said he used to watch the Rebbe say it, and the Rebbe would count on his fingers. Each one, Hatzariv, Hatzipoiren, Hachelbena. He would touch each finger to count the 11 kinds of Tzaischa. And he says, what does it say about Tzaischa? It says, we have no idea. It could take a lifetime to understand the importance of Tzaischa, what it accomplishes. And when we say Tzaischa, Bichlal, there's a Maisa. I don't remember all the details. I think it's Rashbi once came to a town. There was a Magefa, and he said the parsha of Tzaischa, and the Magefa went away. It took away the plague. Tzaischa is extremely powerful. Not only that, what do we say? When we say the Tzaischa, we're talking about the Kohen Gadol, Shemehem Machnes Kohen Gadol B'Yom HaKippurim. It's like every day you have a chance to enter with the Kohen Gadol to Kodesh HaKadoshim. It's like unbelievable. You start thinking about what these words do. What did they accomplish? What did it take? 5 minutes hearing a shiur of someone giving me Chassidus. When we learn Chassidus, it gives us a geschmack, gives us an insight. We appreciate it. We appreciate the mitzvahs. We do it with simcha. And the Rebbe says over there, when he talked about these 3 things of the Arizal, he says, who can compare himself to the Arizal? But Efes Katseu V'Shemetz Menu. A little tiny drop of it, everyone can take from him. Our learning should be better, with more chayas, more effort. Our doing mitzvahs with more readiness to put all the effort in, whether it's in money or physical effort, and in simcha, to add in our simcha. Because simcha brings brachas. Ein hashchina shayda l'mitach simcha. That's why it says, David HaMelech used to play the harp because it brought the Ruach HaKodesh. There's a pasuk. But Yehi kinagin hamenagin, but Yehi alav Ruach Hashem, or Yad Hashem, I don't know. That simcha brings pashat brachas from Hashem. Like I mentioned this countless times, says what in Zohar, that when Hashem sees a person with a happy countenance, his face is shining, panim me'iros, the Eibishter gives him more brachas. We should walk around with a smile. And walking around with a smile will bring us all the brachas. Especially now, in the 9 days, it says, Mishenichnes of, Mimatin, it doesn't say Mimatin Simcha. The Minchas Halaza, the Munkacha says. It doesn't say Mishenichnes of Mimatin Simcha. No, it doesn't say such a thing. That in my book. It says Mishenichnes of Mimatin Bis Simcha. It says, what does that mean? Say Mimatin Simcha, just diminish Simcha. It doesn't say so, because a Yid is never supposed to diminish Simcha. So what does this mean? Mimatin, if you want to diminish the problems of Chodesh Av, the Churban, and the Galus, how are you mimatin? How can you diminish it and make it less? By what? B'simcha, through being b'simcha. Yes, Shulchan Aruch tells us there are limitations. You can't make a chasana, no listening to music, shechiyah, and all this stuff. Yes, of course we have to be careful with Shulchan Aruch. So how can you do b'simcha? So the Rebbe said there's an eitzah. Teiris Hashem Tmima Mesamche Leiv. This kind of simcha is 100% mutar and is even an obligation. You learn Torah, it creates a simcha. And that simcha is what we're talking about. How can you learn Torah? 3 weeks we learn about Hilchos Beis Abechira. And the 9 days we have siyumim. Every day is siyum, or in 770 they do it a few times a day. Whenever you can. That brings simcha. The Eibusha should help. That we'll have the siyum of Galus finally, and we'll see. Once we have the siyum of Galus, we'll see him. We'll see Mashiach Tzidkenu in front of our eyes. Especially we're going to Shabbos Chazayin. We'll have the Chazayin, the vision of the third Beis Hamikdash. Not only our Etzem HaNefesh or Yechidish HaNefesh, but we'll see it, Begashmias, Bepoel Mamash, Karev Mamash, Amen. Zayt Gesund.